We are live.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. So today we have a very special guest. He's visiting from Boston. He's an old friend of mine. Alan Jamison. What's up, man?
Hello.
So Alan and I have known each other at this point. Oh my God.
Don't do the math.
Yeah,
only
I know,
make you sad.
So longer than I've been doing jiu-jitsu, which is I over 2 decades at this point.
I was gonna say I've known you since you were like a white belt in Tae Kwon Do.
Yeah. So like,
I know nothing about the Tae Kwon Do days, by the way.
You don't. Yeah. It's
well
sort
then.
of a,
I'm so glad I'm here.
It's something I don't really talk about all that much, just because like I started jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai as an adult. But so for those who don't know, I did Taekwondo for 11 years before I started like the jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai path, from 11 to 22. And then I met Alan along the way. He and I were we talked about like training partners and how like the importance of having a good solid training partner was. He was sort of my training partner back in the day. I was a white belt. You were already a black belt.
Yeah.
So
I started doing Taekwondo when I was 6. So if you started when you were 11, what? I'm a year older than you?
No, you're 2 years, man.
2 years
Give me a
older.
little credit here. Let's not put me into Mark Feast.
I see. So you're 23. Okay.
yes. But
okay. So I would have been 13. Yeah. So I was already 2nd degree black belt.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were. I just remember the picture of you doing the splits, like the Jean-Claude Van Damme
my
style
first question.
splits.
My first question is: how long does it take on average for a Taekwondo practitioner to get a black belt?
That varies wildly based on the school, I think. So I took, 3.5 years to get a black belt, and then another 3 to get my 2nd degree. Does that math work? Yeah, I think that's right.
So, and on average, how frequently were you training during that period from white to black?
From white to black, I did like 3 days a week, and like hour training, or hour plus a bit maybe, 3 times a week. I was enthusiastic as a kid too, so I was also like practicing at home, but yeah, that would be on the upper side of how much probably the average Taekwondo school you would be going to get a black belt.
And the requirements though are different. Like it's a lot. Like we had spoken about the black belt requirements for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it's super sort of subjective, but like for Taekwondo, it's sort of almost like the Gracie Barra curriculum, right? Like you need to know this, demonstrate it, it's tested. You need to know this. It's like it's very curriculum based. You know what you have to do, and as long as you can basically FCAT it and like train for the test, like there's likelihood that you'll pass, right? So which makes it easy to disseminate. And
so would you say that it's if you? So what are the belts? Like, what are the belt colors in Taekwondo?
Oh man,
there are so many. So that is one thing. There's
there's white,
yeah.
But there's stripes too.
There's pretty constant feedback, I would say. Like, so you do white, yellow, green, blue, red, and black.
There's purple.
So Master Fook didn't do purple. But
purple
there were schools
thing?
There were schools who threw purple in there. There were schools who threw brown in there. I think he did like the I'm going to call it the minimal set.
Just for the sake of this, if we were to grab a red belt in Taekwondo, you guys would argue that it's pretty evident, like it's pretty clear what that person should know and not know. Like if you grab, I guess, 2 different red belts is a better thing. That it would be pretty clear they can demonstrate the same set of techniques.
Well, that's the thing is, you don't learn different techniques later on. The grading system is based on what forms you learn. And like, because
I was going to say, they would know the same forms. The quality with which they would perform them could have high variance.
Yeah, okay,
because as Chris says, it was like, you could basically have a sheet of paper that said, to test for your red belt, 1 black stripe, you need to know what Taeguk Iljan or Taeguk Paojan, something like. There's a set of forms that you needed to know.
And this is dictated by
So
the
Chris,
WTF.
would you argue that if we took 2 brown belts in jiu-jitsu, like there's a lot more variance in the techniques they know than what you would see with Taekwondo?
Yes, because Taekwondo, I mean, to say that it's not limited, but limited to kicking. I mean, like super minimal punching and blocking, which it's interesting. So jiu-jitsu, a main differentiator between jiu-jitsu and a lot of traditional martial arts is like the fact that like what we train and the techniques we learn translate directly to sparring, right? So like the forms that you learn in traditional martial arts, while they say they should translate as a form of like shadow boxing and like sharpening the muscles and that sort of thing, don't necessarily translate to spar. So like what you're learning in the forms, you don't use in sparring. Like the rules of sparring don't dictate like I do like an outside middle block, in a front stance. You just fucking cover your arms up, your chest up. So
I think
it's difficult to gauge that way because much within Taekwondo, like people tend to seek different routes as well. Some people, because their competitions are forms and sparring, some people will just become a pure sport sparrer, right? And they do like minimal amounts of forms, and then some people will do just really perfect the craft of doing forms with almost very little application to actual fighting, right?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, this is something Chris and I have talked about many times, is I feel like the value of the forms is more like building understanding of your body. And while like, I'm not going to do this sort of very formal, like pull this arm back to your ear and hold the other arm up and then pull out like this to do a block. Like if I'm sparring, I'm not going to do that. But having the body sense to know how to quickly move my, as you say, you cover up. If I'm covering up as somebody's throwing a kick, it's probably some combination of a low block and an inside middle block, but I'm not going to make it look right when I'm sparring. But having the sense of your body, I think, I know you would say, why don't you just train that motion anyway? This yes. Was, yeah.
Yes, I would say that. We've had this.
So, Chris and I, so I left Orlando in 2007.
Oh my God, was it that long ago?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
That's why I paused. I was like, no, that can't be. Yeah, that's it. Moved to Seattle for grad school and convinced Chris it would be a good idea to take a road trip, like diagonally across the U.S.
It was awesome.
And we spent most of the drive, like, talking back and forth about these things and, like, is there some value to training these very stylized movements in the sense that in the heat of the moment you won't do them as stylized, and that's fine, but having trained them that way, your mindset is sort of, as your mindset decays, you'll still be doing something useful, versus why don't you just train alive all the time and just do the useful movement in a more dynamic context. And I don't think we can.
Is it a form of cross training? Like, are these forms, like, could be argued are a way to train your mobility, flexibility, and strength for doing movements that are applicable to Taekwondo?
I think there's some fairness to that.
Fair to say,
in the sense that, like, so a lot of these things are very exaggerated. Like, I would even say calling it shadow boxing is it's a bit on edge, right? Because you do these stances where, yes, it is a solid stance once you're in it, but you would just be dead if you tried to do this in any kind of combat. But you're training yourself to sort of, you're working on flexibility, strength in an awkward position, that sort of thing.
I would argue that it's almost more of like a sort of calisthenic than it is. I mean, like, it's like a form of like conditioning more than it is like functional training.
So maybe like old school training before they had modern training methods that we have in the 21st century.
I think so, because like the thing that always sort of got me, and I think sort of, and maybe I don't know. I don't hate Taekwondo, by the way. Like, I'm very proud of my heritage in it. Let me preface it with that. I just at this point, I've just been doing Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai longer.
You know that sounds like when people say, "I don't want to be racist," but
okay, I've got a black friend, right? Like, but that's so
You do?
I do.
Actually, you have multiple.
I have multiple, and they all whoop my ass. But like, I feel as though if Taekwondo were to truly sort of like evolve, then the rules in the sparring would involve the techniques that you're learning in forms. I think that's my contention with it ultimately.
So I think one thing where I may see it a bit differently than you, just because of my experience, is you started Taekwondo after it became an Olympic sport.
Agreed.
And I think it really started to change quite quickly when it became an Olympic sport. And it was something I was sort of watching for because my dad had done judo, I think like in the early 60s or something.
Which probably looked a lot like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, mind you.
Probably. And as soon as Taekwondo became a demonstration sport in Seoul, his immediate response was, "Oh, well, the Olympics ruined judo." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm not gonna like.
That's interesting.
Stand behind that because
your dad said that at what 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Because that's sort of okay. Because that's the overriding feeling now. You know, still. Because at the time, Brazilian Judo looked a lot more like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than it does now. Now it looks like stand-up, like Greco-Roman wrestling with a jacket. Interesting. So that whole like conservative versus progressive argument has existed across martial arts for a while now. Then.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, we've talked about in the past at our school. Our school is relatively, I would say, I guess you would use the word progressive, but very informal when it comes to, I guess, rules and traditions. I mean, we do line up in order, we do bow, in an often mat to that degree. But there are a lot of other etiquette rules and stuff that other more traditional schools adhere to that we don't necessarily adhere to. And me personally, I think it's a good thing, but we've talked about how as this becomes more of a sport, then it's going to attract more sport-minded people, and sports don't necessarily have a history of martial arts traditions. It's more of train, get better, compete, win, repeat sort of thing. So I'm kind of curious about is, what are in a Taekwondo school, what are the etiquette rules? How do you guys go about when a student comes to take class? What is commonplace? What is common practice? What are the things that need to be observed? Because I'm kind of interested in comparing and contrasting that to what we experience in jiu-jitsu gyms, and then in particular at our gym.
Yeah.
So to give you a starting point, like just outline, like
what's the onboarding process?
Yeah, like a new student comes in. What's the onboarding process, and then what does a normal class look like structure-wise? Less on maybe from the whole thing, from how you get on the mat, how you begin the class, breakdown of what a class looks like, and then how the classes ends, and interactions with the teacher and stuff.
I actually don't remember. I mean, like I sort of used the framework for my jiu-jitsu classes, ironically, but I think I've sort of I've blended sort of the traditional style of like teaching with just kind of what I do now. Alan would probably be a lot. Do you remember how?
Yeah.
You bow in, right? Like, just sort of
first you line up by rank.
We still do.
You bow in. And there's a whole like, so let's see, what do you do? So you like sort of, I'll call it salute the flags, I guess.
Okay,
so there's usually like
a lot of nationalism going on.
Yeah.
Just to, like,
which was, yeah. So at Master Fook School, Master Fook is not Korean, so we'd have like the South Korean flag that you're supposed to have because of Taekwondo. We'd also have a Vietnamese flag.
Because he's Vietnamese. An American flag.
And American flag. And we had the WTF flag.
Yeah, like their banner, right?
The WTF flag?
The World Taekwondo Federation.
Yeah, so like, do you know what that sounds like? The WTF flag.
I mean, once you put all four of those together, it is a bit of a WTF flag, like of Benetton.
Yeah. That would be like, I guess, if we hung a IBJJF flag, right? I mean, like, but we're not a Gracie Barra school, so we don't do things like that.
So, so you salute the flag, you bow in to the instructor, and then you would, and the Taekwondo doctrine.
Oh, yeah,
You have to
that's right.
recite the
Yeah,
Taekwondo doctrine. So
and it's sort of like a mantra.
it's like 5 principles that you're supposed to observe as a student of Taekwondo. It's courtesy, modesty, perseverance, self-control, and indomitable spirit.
Which is like a really hard word when you're like 11
For
years
like,
old.
yeah,
Indomitable.
I think a lot of other schools just say like
heart or something.
like
Courage.
It's more like a Captain Planet kind of thing.
Yeah,
You got
like-
heart in there.
But
Okay, so I think that's that's like the formal opening, and then Master Fook would always observe a sort of like, I'll say kind of a schedule in the sense that like you'd start by doing just drills of basic exercises, sort of marching up and back, start with blocks and punches, and then move into kicks. Oh no, sorry, you got to stretch.
yeah,
first.
I was like, yeah, like you're missing.
Sorry,
like,
yeah,
you're
I'm missing like 10 minutes,
The
yeah.
40, you know,
Yeah, so we did a lot of stretching before starting.
which is super helpful. I will say that probably my hip mobility and hamstring mobility is probably from doing Taekwondo beforehand.
Yeah,
So
I've lost
it consider
quite a lot of my flexibility, and
Deep
I'm
squats,
still
bro.
more flexible than most people. No, I can
Goblet
still do that.
squats, man.
I was just doing that
Were you?
actually to shame Tammy because she couldn't.
And she's Thai, which is like that's an absolute shame.
So, yeah, okay, so yeah, it's been too long since I was at class. So stretching and then these sort of basic drills. Because when I got to the kicking, I was like, no, wait, you can't be
Yeah,
kicking
like
without
you can't kick
stretching.
without otherwise the attrition rate would be 85%.
Yeah. I still ended up popping a hamstring once, but that was after. So, one thing, I did Taekwondo for 20 years, but there was a gap in the middle of a couple of years where I was at school and this club at school was no good. So, I was gone and came back, and my body remembered how things were supposed to go, but my body was no longer capable of doing them the way I had done them before. Okay, so that's off to the side. So, yeah.
It's called aging, man.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
I was still young enough that shouldn't have been an issue. It's just called getting lazy, really. So yeah, you drill sort of basic techniques, and then break up into, say, pairs to do like kicking pads,
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
and
like
these,
line drills, basically.
Yeah. And then there's like 1 and 3 step sparring, which I would say that's more akin to shadow boxing than the forms. I think calling a form somewhere between calisthenics and shadow boxing, but probably closer to calisthenics. So the 1 and 3 step sparring, it's still a fixed like
a
set of
you
motions.
Do this, I do that. Like very.
Yeah,
But overly stylized still. Like it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then would probably break up and do everyone work on their form by
Forms, yeah,
themselves.
Like, whatever that set required like 3 forms you have to learn for whatever the next testing is, right?
Right. And then
And mind you, nobody has the discipline to do this, like just to work on it over and over and over. It's exactly like here, right? Like when Paul's like, set the clock for 5 minutes drill, like everyone does it like twice, and they just sit around like talking. It's the same thing. Like that's across the board for all martial arts.
Universal.
Yes, it's just we're inherently lazy. Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was always on the ball. And then the last thing in class would be sparring, just free sparring with each other.
And how does the class conclude?
So essentially the same as the beginning. So again, you line up by rank, you recite the Taekwondo doctrine, salute the flags, bow out to the instructor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I think I got it all.
that is right. We're meeting with Mr. Fook after this, actually, so we'll have to.
So actually, that was my next thing. Is I noticed
should have
that
had
you,
him here.
I noticed that you refer to him as Master Fook. Is that also part of practicing Taekwondo? As you always refer to the head instructor as Master So and So?
So you refer to anyone who is 4th Dan or above as master.
As master, which I think in Jiu-Jitsu it's 6th degree.
I have no idea. on
I
that.
don't know. I'm
So,
like,
I mean, well,
yes?
and
No?
the
Maybe.
significance is that 4th Dan is where you're considered capable of teaching on your own.
is it really?
Yeah,
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's because you didn't make it that far.
that's true. I was you made it to 4th, right?
I did.
I got to 3rd, so I was almost there. Not a master. unfortunately. But by the time I was you can teach at second.
Yeah,
right?
I think second you can start teaching under someone else's supervision.
So like, you know how Danner says like, he has like senpai or whatever it is, like he uses like these fucking Japanese terms that are very like awesome sounding, and like Koreans do the same thing. Like, master is sabumnim.
Sabumnim is master instructor, and kyosanim is like lower level, junior level instructor, something like that. Yeah.
So like, there's that. It's funny too because I noticed maybe it's just this annoying rebelliousness in me of always wanting to do things differently.
Do you call him Mister now?
Yeah, I've called him Mister for a long time.
For a long time. No,
like,
I know.
Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh really? So it's like, I think it was when
I shun you for it, sir.
But so like when I was like 12, and I think because I was raised like a Roman Catholic, I had a friend who actually introduced me to Carlin then, and
comedian George Carlin.
Yeah, George Carlin, who's my messiah. He so like back in the day, he oh man, I forgot how it came about. But so like as I started to sort of rebel against the world, as you do when you're like 12 or 13, I was like this guy's not like better than me. He's just been doing it longer, or whatever the case is, right? Like, just as I saw like the Pope, I'm like, this guy's not a fucking better Catholic than me. Like, he's just been doing it a whole lot longer.
Wait a minute.
You actually looked at the
Pope and said, you actually. So wait a minute. You actually, number one, a 12-year-old saw the Pope somehow.
No, not saw him. I mean, like on television.
Yeah,
you know?
and you were like. This guy's not a better Catholic than me.
Yeah. He's just been doing it longer, right?
Why did you think it was suddenly a competition between you and the Pope to see who was the better Catholic? And who was grading? Did Jesus come floating down or something? Like,
exactly.
Hey man,
like who does this guy think he is, right? So like,
there should be a Voo-mobile. There's a Pope-mobile. This isn't fair.
So somewhere along the lines, I was like, F this, man. Like, I'm not calling people by any like fucking titles, because that's all that shit's just made up, right? So like, I think ever since around like 13 or 14, I had probably started just calling him like Mr. Fook instead, and then like and coming to like jiu-jitsu too, like that's why I'm kind of like anti like titles. Like I'm just that's why I like that gym sort of thing. Like it's coach and like athletes. You know, there's not like titles. Like a coach is just a guy who's there to help you improve your performance. Ultimately, he's just been doing a little bit longer, so he's got a little bit more knowledge base than you, but he's not better than you. You know, which is why I think maybe that Taekwondo humility comes into play, is where, like I know you kind of said the other day, like the idea that you'd rather hang out with somebody who's a little bit more arrogant than somebody who's self-deprecating. But like, I think that's the approach of like, I try not to be self-deprecating, but I just try to be humble about it.
Well, I will. So hang on. So being humble is a good thing, and I would never disparage that as a virtue. My spectrum was, if I had a person that was like, like the classic example is like my mom would tell me about this girl she went to school with, and in art class she's like, oh, this picture I painted is not that good, and they say, oh, Sally, and her name's not Sally, I'm making this up.
Is that false humility though?
You talking about like fishing for a compliment kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's not so good, or always like throwing doubts. Oh, I don't know if this is so good, blah, blah. And they're like, no, you're good. You're doing well. That's the kind of person I'm talking about. Okay. If you want to call that false humility, fine. But, I think being humble is a very important virtue, and people should have that. But I'd much rather deal with someone that's a little full of themselves, that is a little braggadocious, than someone that's constantly, whether it's false humility, fishing for compliments, or whatever. I think you can work more with the braggadocious people than you can with the people that have self-esteem issues. It's a self-esteem thing. To me, it's a self-esteem issue.
Okay, I was going to say, in the sense that you think it's more honest, because like I know where I stand with you if you're like telling me what. I just say me personally, like I can handle on a day-to-day basis dealing with braggadocious people than dealing with people with self-esteem problems.
Oh, I mean, that's okay. Fair
and I think you can work with them at least. It's a lot easier to. I think is to chop a guy down a little bit than, try and build someone up that doesn't want to be built up because they have self-esteem issues. That's all I'm trying to say. But being humble, like ideally a person has a lot of confidence, but they're humble about it too, I think.
Fair enough.
And I don't think Chris feeling that he's a better Catholic than the Pope qualifies as having a self-esteem issue.
At 12 years old, so he started young. I like it. That Michael Jordan guy, like, he's just better at basketball because he's taller than me and he's played more.
Right? Like, he's just putting the hours.
But actually, by definition, that's why people are better.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
so that's what I was going to ask. What do you even mean by better at some point then? Like,
I don't know.
when you were 11, Master Fook was better at Taekwondo
he was
than
better
you.
than me, right?
Like,
But
that's
I'm
not open for
but it's
debate,
just-
I don't think.
First off, I hate the term, like, master.
Yeah, okay, I can
Like,
see that.
it's
yeah.
so subservient. Like, other
I
people
think
aren't your
there's-
subservience, or your
Yeah.
subordinates, rather.
I mean, I think some amount of formality, I can see a value in it, particularly in the context of like a Taekwondo class full of 6-year-olds whose parents have never like taught them discipline. It's a vehicle for teaching discipline. The flip side is if you're 35 and you have to bow to every 12-year-old with a black belt when you walk through the front door, it's kind of ridiculous. So like I can, and that is a thing. Like, yeah. So that's one thing.
But what's wrong with showing respect to? Like, and that's the thing is like, you know, to me, it's all about mutual respect.
Is Taekwondo primarily marketed to kids nowadays?
I suspect so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
not
that
so much for
that
the
was.
sport end of it. I think it's sort of taken the judo route, the judo route though, right? Like for the sport end of it.
I mean, okay. To be fair, I have not stepped into a Taekwondo school in years at this point.
Yeah, me neither.
But for sure, I mean, even 20 years ago, it was mostly marketed to kids, I think.
Thanks to Ninja Turtles. No, like
No, we know that.
Karate
yeah,
Kid.
No, Karate Kid was like a teenage thing. Like if you speak to
Yes.
two of the larger sort of martial arts school consultants here in Orlando,
Yeah.
who like now do it internationally, like they said the tipping point for them was Ninja Turtles. It wasn't the Karate Kid, as most people would think. Because like Karate Kid, Cobra Kai is awesome, by the way.
I mean, 6-year-old Alan was watching Karate Kid before every Taekwondo test to get like.
Were you
amped up.
really?
Oh yeah.
Were you like rocking like Joe Esposito, like you're the best? I listen to that now before class. In fact, it's my ringtone. But
The
so,
self-esteem
okay, so-
issues again
so the-
cropping up, Craig.
So what are your thoughts on like the master thing? Like in jiu-jitsu they call them professor, which I think is a little bit more appropriate. But now that's getting a little too like
That may be a bit much.
So my
for
first question is it just a translation issue? Is the word in Taekwondo is we Korean? You
I
said
actually don't know.
Korean.
Korean.
Oh,
is there
how
a
does
word
some of
in
them translate?
Korean?
I don't
Like,
know.
how does it translate? And or is the significance of master different? Because in English, obviously, when you say master, you think of a master-slave relationship, and you think of someone above a subservient.
Right.
But is master? Could you have translated it to coach, which
It
sounds
actually
way more
means-
neutral?
It means father teacher.
Oh, so God
for
forbid
real?
a woman teaches. So are there any women in Taekwondo? Is there like, is that the big secret that we haven't unveiled here? That there no women are allowed to practice Taekwondo?
No.
So more comparisons to the Catholic Church. like, this is like unveiling the Illuminati. Like this is our new document.
The Da Vinci
Our
Code.
Yeah.
So
Wait, it means father instructor? I
guess
never
so,
knew that.
According to Bo and Nim mean father figure or father teacher. So, but I mean, like, keep in mind, like, I believe Taekwondo came from a military like background, so like that's probably a big portion of it too, right? Like the genesis of each of these sort of systemized styles of martial arts. Like Jiu-Jitsu was literally originally created to be like. It was modified judo, right? And like it was a bunch of egotistical guys who were like, we're gonna go storm your dojo and whoop your ass and see what works and learn from there. Taekwondo is if I remember history correctly.
You had to do a report on Taekwondo history to get your black belt. That was another.
I was like, Alan, that was literally 21 years ago.
Okay, so describe this report like an actual written report.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like, I mean, a couple of pages. It wasn't.
So
big.
is that what Paul's got in store for you? Paul's going to be...
Yeah, it's like I have to do like the jiu-jitsu doctrine and like describe my experiences with each.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because there was a different one for each.
I think it's a different one. Like, what are my
For each
goals
time.
and like
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Like, what does the doctrine mean to you? I think.
But I definitely remember for first dan, it had to include Taekwondo history because Master Fu gave me like a book
Did you really?
on like the history of
Is the
of
big,
Korea.
big black book with the dude kicking on the front?
Dude, it was 30 years ago. I
Yeah,
have no
yeah,
idea.
I know.
So I might be pulling this out of my ass, but is it possible that Taekwondo was used as a form of almost parenting, where if you're saying it has backgrounds with the military, historically, does that mean like kids were shipped out of their families to a barracks, if you would call it back then, and you had to have like tradition in Taekwondo that almost act as a way to instill ethics and values, almost like a parent would, because you don't have your parents around if you're being sent away?
I don't think
No.
it's like a Muay Thai fight camp.
Okay.
I don't think it's like that. I think it's like
So the history is a bit funny because like if you read like formal histories of Taekwondo, they'll trace it back 1,500
like
years.
Bodhidharma with one arm. That's why you kick, and like all this bullshit, right?
Well,
like these sort
there-
of like romanticized.
There was some like historically documented form called Taekyon or something like this.
yeah. And it's
But-
funny because like they'll extrapolate that from like one like archaeological like pictogram of like two dudes who just like were kicking, and they're like, oh, that's our ancient martial art, right? Like,
But
I
the flip side is if you actually look at the
such an
modern
asshole.
genesis of Taekwondo, I'm pretty sure it's like a post World War II
yeah, right.
Korean nationalist program of like, look, we have
We
our
do.
own martial art. This is our
Yes.
own thing. And of course, if you're trying to like
Promote.
make a nationalist project after a war that really like just ground all over you in really bad ways, yeah, you're gonna say, well, look, we've been doing this for 1,500 years, and then we found this
It's
tile.
not karate. It's not karate.
It is not karate.
It's not karate. Like, so to your point, I'm ethnically Vietnamese, born American, raised American. Gonna buy that America fuck yeah gi. I will buy that. So like
He's
my
literally
parents-
got red, white, and blue stripes on his
I'm
shirt
wearing
right now.
a GI Joe rash guard. But so the Vietnamese like national martial art, it's called Vo Vietnam, right? Which translates directly.
Does the U.S. have a national martial art?
I don't know. Do we?
Skeet shooting, is that?
I mean, okay, calm down there. Are you a boomer? No, you're a Gen Xer.
Dude, you're 2 years younger than me,
I know.
dickhead.
Or calm down, boomer, or whatever. But so like
I'm not even I've seen definitions of millennial that upper ended at 1980, and I was like, okay, I'm not a millennial. You guys are off. But
yeah.
I think
You know-
I'm
you know
scraping
your
the edge
gender
of Gen X. Even.
But so like the Vietnamese martial art, because like Vietnam is like what 20 years sort of behind like being a punching bag between like nations behind Korea. Like as they gained independence and like started to like develop their national identity, they came up like oh, we dug in the like the archives of like fucking these like caves and whatever, and we found this is our martial art, right? And so Jiu-Jitsu,
It is the best martial art.
It's the best
at least
martial art,
from a
right?
spectator's point of view.
it's awesome, right? So Taekwondo, kicking, right? Karate, chopping, like judo, tossing somebody and hitting them with a planet. Jiu-Jitsu, joint locks, whatever. Do you know what the signature move? Oh boy. Should we pause this? We got it? No.
You go.
All right. The signature martial art of Vietnam is called Vo Vietnam, and the signature move of it is literally a flying head scissors, like a
good.
Sonya Blade style flying head scissors, right? Like I have to kick the guy in the stomach, to which he like keels over, which provides me like a launching pad to like jump up, and then it's terrible. But
Chris, I'll let you wrap it up. I have to assist with cleanup duty.
clean up in the lobby.
In aisle 1.
Did you follow the arrows to see where the lobby is? But so actually, we'll be wrapping up in a couple minutes here. Alan, what are you expecting to see today in Jiu-Jitsu? Since you're joining me in class, and I think I have to teach.
I don't know. That's why I'm here.
That's true. That's true.
Because I feel like I saw you teach Muay Thai sometime.
Probably.
A long time ago.
God, how long ago? That must have been a really, really long time ago.
The 427 school?
Really?
Am I allowed to talk about that? No.
What's that?
Yeah, I feel like I did. But I've definitely never seen you teach
Jiu-Jitsu, right? Yeah, yeah. And it's not many people have.
And I'm curious to see, because I'm also at that point in my life where I would like to get back into martial arts, but a striking art, I feel like that should be off the table, given that I need my brain to keep working to stay employed.
Ironically, right? Like, that's a big part of why I stopped doing like Muay Thai. You know, I used to balance my time doing Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, and over time, like, I just realized, like, I kind of use this example as like whenever somebody's signing up for martial arts and they want to do Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, and they're like, "Oh no, I'd rather do Muay Thai." So I'm like, "That's fine. Like, you know, try both." You can watch 2 advanced black belts do Jiu-Jitsu and go hard, and both of them can leave the mats relatively uninjured, right?
No.
You can't see 2 Muay Thai fighters go hard. Like, and
you're sure everybody's walking away just
like,
fine. Yeah.
Somebody's leaving injured regardless, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just the nature of like trauma.
I think in a way, like, I'm glad that I trained a striking art when I was young and more resilient.
I think though too,
because
like,
I got beat in the head. Like,
oh yeah, I mean
Tae Kwon Do. Well, yeah.
Then, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was one.
Oh, I got knocked out. I mean, like, in class.
Yeah. I got kicked one time, knocked when I had braces, knocked a bracket right through my lip.
Like,
so, I mean, like, I'm glad I had those experiences when I was more resilient. But like I said, at this point, I can't afford to lose any more mental capacity than I've already lost. And
so what line of work are you in?
So I'm moving to Canada in January to start a job as a professor at University of Waterloo.
Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I wish you were living in Orlando so I could drive there with you. Because it would be like we'd have a whole new like set of questions to talk about.
You could fly up to Boston, but it's only like an 8-hour drive. So like,
is it only 8?
Yeah.
Then we'd have to drive it 5 times because
we'll rent a van instead of a U-Haul.
Yeah, it's like it'll work out. Trust me. Like the efficiency of the van versus the diesel engine.
Yeah, I think it's fine. We'll buy carbon offsets or something.
It'll be fun. I would love to do that. Actually, we're like I said though. I think it's awesome you're moving there. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Like it's now an awesome reason for Stacey and me and Connor to go to visit Canada.
You should definitely do that.
Because you're in what city?
So University of Waterloo, and Waterloo. I don't say that right. Waterloo. Anyway, I'm working on saying it right.
You better learn your French, man.
I don't have to teach in French, so I think it's fine.
Physics is the universal language. Math is
absolutely true. Yes. Physics is the universal language. Everyone cringes when they hear it. Yeah, so Waterloo's like an hour and a half west of Toronto.
Okay.
So it's a nice place, and if you want to do anything, Toronto's not far away.
And Waterloo has a really reputable university for technology.
That's true.
How do you know this?
I know that because my advisor in grad school graduated from there. So shout out to Jamie Ruiz.
Do you know them? Do you know Jamie Ruiz?
Jamie Ruiz?
I live in Rio de Janeiro. Do you know this person?
I'm doing the thing that like I work for Disney. Oh, you know this person, right? Like they're 4,000 employees.
Oh, more than that. I feel like.
But the question is, do you know Mickey? That's the important.
I mean, everybody knows Mickey.
We have to train.
Yeah, we do, and I am teaching, I believe. Yes.
Probably. Just assume you are.
Assume you are.
So, Alan, you gonna watch us?
Yeah.
You gonna watch us grapple around in our pajamas?
Yes.
And make funny remarks about us?
I may.
Okay.
We should just leave the mic on and like have them do a play.
A live commentary,
like a layman in jiu-jitsu describing what they're seeing.
Yeah, probably not. We'll probably lose the 2 listeners that we have, and it'll
50.
Yeah, well, I don't.
50 downloads.
50. No, yeah, no, it's getting up there. It's
50 downloads each, or 50 downloads integrated.
No, per.
It's like him listening over.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, I love the sound of my voice. All right, well, Alan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for and enlightening us on Tae Kwon Do.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And Master Fook or Mr. Fook. That's the controversy.
The controversy that lives on.
If he listens to this.
Yeah, I was like, this does not come up at lunch, by the way.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Chris, I'll let you close it out.
All right. See ya.